Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Josh. I'm going to be your presenter today. Where our topic today is payroll calculate bonus. When you go into payroll, our payroll does a lot, of course, but we have a calculate bonus feature in the software. A lot of folks are frankly unaware of this, okay? But you find it by going up to payroll in the upper left here, and we see right below that to the right, let me get out my highlighter, right here, calculate bonus, okay? That is the calculate bonus function that allows us to be able to process bonus payments for our employees in payroll, okay? Probably the first and foremost important thing, one of the most important things to understand about the calculate bonus function is it will only produce checks, okay? There is no way to create an EFT or direct deposit file to upload to your bank when using the calculate bonus function, okay? Just something that we like to get out of the way right away, all right? If you want to calculate a bonus payment and produce an EFT file, I mean, you don't want to print the checks, then essentially you're just going to go back to calculate payroll and use the calculate payroll function just to add in an additional pay with the amounts that you're wanting for the bonus, okay? When doing that, though, there is not a function called gross up like there is when you're doing the calculate bonus. And I'm going to show you about, what the gross up option is and what it does differently than calculate payroll, okay? So we're going to click on calculate bonus. It opens up a very similar window to our calculate payroll wizard, calculate payroll, but it's called calculate bonus wizard. Basically, it's saying what pay date do you want to have the employees paid, or to have this affect your payroll books and your accounting books. So basically just a settlement date. There is no pay period started and pay period ended like there is under calculating payroll, okay? In addition to that, it asks down here at the bottom, pay label to apply bonus to. Well, while most employees will have one in the, here that their regular pay is posted to called regular, maybe we don't want to display on the check that it is considered part of their regular pay. Maybe we want to give it a unique pay label to show on their check stub, and perhaps even transfer into accounting for a unique expense, okay? So basically, it's going to bring in any of the pay labels that are available to select for your employees here, not like paid time off or anything, but in terms of the actual true pay labels, okay? I could choose regular if I wish, but for the purposes of our webinar today, I'm going to choose additional because the bonus is considered additional money or separate money from regular, at least in my thinking, okay? You could post it to regular, all right? It's just where does it show on the pay stub or check stub itself, okay? What is it categorized as? And if you don't have a label in this list that you want, we would suggest you go back up to payroll or data setup and go into your pay labels and set one up that you can choose to. Now, again, if you aren't using something like a pay label of things like additional regularly, often for your employees or overtime or what have you, you may have to manually link that pay label to the respective expense account in accounting when you're preparing to transfer it into accounting. So, just forewarning you that that's what's going to occur or may occur if it's not a pay label that's set up and assigned with the regular account correct, the way it should be. Now, let's see, when we go up to, I'm going to cancel the bonus payment for just a minute. If we go into, special functions, settings, right here, default accounting accounts. Okay, so it isn't show. Okay, so that's not where that's assigned. Okay, so I'm sorry. I thought that might be there where I could set that up as part of the accounts. So it's not there. So I was misthinking on that, folks. I apologize. So that is not going to be set there. So we're going to calculate the bonus today using today's date. We're between payroll cycles, right? Our employees are paid. I could do it to match a pay date if I wish. The software is just going to warn me about that. all right, that I've got to pay payroll on this date, but it'll still permit me to do it. But I'm going to do it as of today. It's between pay cycles. Employees are not expecting this, and so I'm going to make it today's date, and I'm going to use additional, okay? And then we're going to go to next. So again, folks, very, very similar to our calculate payroll process. There's a lot of similarities to this in terms of that, other than what I'm about to show you here, okay? All right, so we're going to go to specific. We're giving a bonus to a couple of our employees today, just a couple. So we're going to do one for our pastor and one for our part-time custodian, part-time organist, Jimmy. So one's a clergy and one's a lay person, okay? I could do it for everybody if I want, but I'm just picking two for the purposes of our webinar and expediency here today. Once I've chosen the employees, I can go back to all and choose it based on a particular pay label or pay period or what have you, but I want more control, so I'm going to pick those two this way. When we go to next, theirs are the only two names appearing here. So over here to the right now, it's asking, what do I want as my bonus amounts here? Okay. So when I enter these amounts here, so let's say we're going to give Larry a $1,000 bonus and we're going to give Jimmy $500. Okay. Here down at the bottom of the window is what I was talking about with regards to choose method for withholding taxes. Okay, that's essentially what the gross up versus standard withholding means. Okay, is gross up is the default. Okay, so what that means is if I am giving Larry a $1,000 bonus and Jimmy a $500 bonus, I want the actual check amounts that they receive to be $1,000 and $500 respectively. Okay. And so what that means is any of the things that, any taxes that are being withheld, and notably would be Social Security and Medicare taxes for Jimmy. Larry won't have that because he's a minister. And then any local taxes. But federal income tax is not withheld. No state taxes are withheld when choosing the gross up option. So if I now click next, and I'm going to come back here and choose the standard withholding, and I now go to browse payments, let me get rid of my drawing there, browse payments, we see now in the upper right corner, net pay $1,500 respectively, okay? So what that also then means is, now again, Larry, here's his local taxes that were withheld on top of that. And then Jimmy, notice gross pay of $541.42. So when I click on his name, here is the Social Security and Medicare withholding amounts. So it's added in those withholding amounts to then turn around and deduct those. So basically the amount of the Social Security and or local taxes are added into that gross amount. So then the software turns around and deducts out both the employer and employee's share of Social Security to then pay as part of the 941 taxes, okay? But again, Larry is no different than he always is, right? He's our pastor. He's not paying in federal or state taxes, no Social Security or Medicare. Amount withheld is all zero, no Social Security and Medicare, and only are we seeing the local taxes being added on. So then when those are deducted or withheld, he gets the net pay of $1,000, okay? All right, that, folks, in kind of a couple-minute explanation is really what gross up does. The amount of the bonus winds up being the amount that they're getting on their check, their net check amount, and any taxes that are being withheld are added on, then they're turned around and withheld. So if we now click OK and we go back, still shows the $1,000. Now if I choose standard withholding, it says tax table withholding rates are used instead of IRS flat rate. Additional withholding may result in a zero pay, maybe. If an employee has additional taxes withheld, it may result in those taxes turning around and being withheld to apply to their taxes per their request. But when I do standard withholding and go to next, and now go to browse payments, notice now Larry has his $1,000 bonus minus the federal tax withheld, any state taxes and local. Okay. And then same thing for Jimmy, any federal, state, and Social Security and Medicare amounts and local taxes. Oh, he has none that are withheld. So their net pay amounts now change. So they're the amounts of the gross pay of amount of the bonus minus the standard tax withholdings. Okay. So just that's the difference between gross up and standard withholding. But again, regular calculate payroll function doesn't have a gross up option, only the calculate bonus. So if you really want the employees to receive the amount of the bonus as their net pay amount, you really have to use the calculate bonus function, whether you print checks or not. I mean, you can do things like fudge numbers and things under calculate payroll and kind of play with those, adding in the tax amounts into the taxes so it gets close to withholding those amounts so the net pay amount matches. But boy, it's a real challenge when frankly, it's just easier to do it this way. Okay. All right. So let's go back. So we're going to choose gross up. Again, go to next, browse payments. Yes, they're here. The taxes are being withheld. Everything looks good. I'm going to click OK. So at this point, folks, the payroll is very much processed pretty much like your regular pay at this point, unless they're normally receiving direct deposit pays, okay? Notice copy EFT is not even an option here. I cannot choose copy EFT file. Simply is not an option, okay? I can choose post to payroll, yes, that's why I'm here. If I want to enter it and save it and come back to it later, I would choose no and go to next. It's fine. But I'm not. I want to post this today. I can print reports just like I would normally. I'm going to print checks and assign check numbers so I can distribute those to my 2 employees today, and I am going to transfer it to accounting. Okay? Well, so folks, again, if I choose print reports just like you do with calculate payroll, it's going to bring up the same reports. Pay period earnings report, pay period deductions report, taxable earnings detail report, and pay type earnings detail report. Okay. So again, just for the purposes of our webinar, I'm not going to print those reports. So now when I take them off the selected reports, it'll skip over the previews of those reports, and I can simply go to next. And here I am at my check printing. Larry, my senior minister, is normally a direct deposit employee. Okay, so that's one of the things here is that he's not getting direct deposit this time. He's getting a check. Okay, so here I am at my standard check printing window. Choose the date, make sure the date is what I want. Now I go to next. Here I then would enter my starting check number. As always, I can enter a memo that will appear on the checks for them. Thanks for all you do. Something like that. And then when I go to next, oh, it's telling me I've already got these check numbers. Yeah, let's change that. So let's make those a different net check number. How about 10-2? There we go. I'm just making up check numbers, folks. So now I'm going to go to next. There we go. Didn't get that message. I knew I was in the ballpark. All right, so now we're back to our check layout and printing options. So same thing as always. You choose the check layout you're wanting. In this case, our default payroll checks stub format is fine. Okay. All I need to do now is go to print checks. So here's my preview of my checks. I put my check stock in my printer. I then click my print button in the upper left corner up here. Yeah, I'm going to send it to my printer. I'm using a PDF converter, folks. So now, I've sent that to my printer. I'm not doing anything until I've grabbed the checks off the printer to ensure that they are considered presentable. Of course, there's nothing that's misprinting on them or something that the bank might reject the check, okay? Or make sure they printed just in general correctly. Once I've grabbed that off the printer, then I'm going to close out of the preview. I'm now going to, now again, folks, this is a very common support problem. I cannot just cancel out of this here using the X. I have to click next. This is a very common support call. It's even true for bonuses too. Click next to save check numbers. That's so important. We get so many calls from folks saying, oh, my payroll didn't transfer to accounting. And then we find out that they didn't actually save the check numbers properly. Okay, they closed out of this, which doesn't assign the check numbers. I have to click next, and here's my mark as printed box right here to the left. Mark as printed. Okay, those are checked by default because I clicked print at the preview, and so the software thinks, oh, they did click print to send it to their checks. So it's by default going to check those for me, okay? If I didn't, one of them didn't, or any of them didn't print correctly, I can uncheck those and go back to the print queue and reprint new checks if I wish, okay? But I've examined the checks, they're fine. So we go to next and finish. It now opens up my transfer to accounting, okay? And here's what I'm talking about, folks, is over here, I do have this linked, okay? But gross pay additional here to the right, those are the pay labels that may not be set up in their employee files with the appropriate expense account. If that expense account were blank over here to the left, I would have to manually populate these here by simply clicking in that field. Or if it's not even showing the correct correct expense account number, I can still change that, see? So if I click then I'll go, oh, I don't want that to go to senior minister's salary. I want that to go to a special bonus expense account. I can still change it right here. And I can change it for any of the employees, okay? So then once I've made my appropriate selections, everything else is still good. All my taxes, my asset account to credit, everything's fine. And then I'm going to simply click transfer. It says transfer payroll for 2020, July 24th. Yes. Now do I want to print the transfer audit report? Now I go to print and it brings up my record of my transactions, which have been created in accounting. Confirms it's been posted and the accounts that were affected with their respective amounts. Okay, send that to my printer. And then I'm done. I now just simply close out and then click finish one final time. I can print the payroll summary or the bonus summary report if I wish, okay, and finish. And that, folks, is really the calculate bonus function in Church Windows Payroll. Again, not a terribly complex process. Again, for those that are using direct deposit, that may be a slight deviation from what you're normally used to doing. The other option, if you do have direct deposit, is that you could print those, use the calculate bonus function just to generate the net pay amounts and print the stubs to plain paper, then use a bill pay function, say online through the church's bank, and transfer the money electronically to the employee's bank for those and just give them the check stub. That's another way to consider working around that, even if you're using direct deposit. We're pretty good at finding alternate workarounds for things for you that might be a deviation from what you're normally used to doing. So, all right, folks. Well, that is where we are going to leave our topic for today.